Okay, so today we're going to work on Unit 5.6. Unit 5.6, we're going to work more on solving quadratic equations. By completing the square. Solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So this is going to be really, really similar to what we did yesterday. Only difference is that we are going to have what are called leading coefficients in front of the problems. Okay, so it's going to be numbers like this. So like 2x squared plus 8x plus 14 equals 0. 2x squared plus 8x plus 14 equals 0. So these have what's called leading coefficients. That just means a number in front. Okay? So if I hadn't told you to solve by completing the square, what's the first method that you should try? Because it's usually the easiest. Factor and solve. And yes, when you want to factor and solve, the first thing you would do is look for a what? GCF. So GCF here is 2. I can take out a 2. Left behind is x squared plus 8x plus 4x. I'm sorry. X squared plus 4x plus 7 equals 0. At least I know you guys were paying attention. Yay. Then, if this was factorable, you would factor and set all the parts equal to 0, right? We did this a couple units ago, or a lot. When you set the number out front equal to 0, what happens to it? It just goes away, right? What we're going to do is we're going to do that now, okay? Because you know, if it was factorable, I could set everything equal to 0. One of the factors here is 2. So I'm going to divide this away, okay? You can divide it away at the beginning. And what happens here is we divide away by 2. What is 0 divided by 2? Still 0. So we get x squared plus 4x plus 7 equals 0. And this is gone, okay? Then what we've done here is essentially turn it into what we did yesterday, okay? We're still going to do the exact same thing. So what's the formula to find the C value? Oh, first off, I'm sorry. Can we multiply to 7? Are there any two numbers that multiply to 7 add to 4? No. So if we want to use completing the square, what do I do first? Not yet. What do I have to? First, you have to move the 7, so you have to create the space. Yes. So start by creating that space. So x squared plus 4x. We have to just create that space to fill in. Equals -7. Don't forget, if you are going to add to one side, you have to add to the other side as well. Okay. Then the formula for completing the square, finding the C value, is the middle number divided by 2 and squared. So we take that middle number, divide it by 2 and square it. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared tells us we add what to both sides? 4. So add 4 to the left side of the equation, add 4 to the right side of the equation. Then rewrite this as a binomial squared. So if you factored this, you could do this by just factoring, or you can just take the number straight from those parentheses. Okay, if you showed your work, you just rewrite it right there, and it's always going to work. So x plus 2 quantity squared equals -7 and 4 gives you what? -3. You try to finish from there. And we should all be taking notes right now.
Yeah, guys.
Back row. So from here, what's your next step? How do we solve? Root both sides. Whenever you put in a radical, what's the next step?
Add plus or minus.
Put in a plus or minus. So that gives you x plus 2 equals plus or minus, what's the square root of -3? I root 3, right? You have to take out the i's. I root 3. Then R2 and I root 3 going to be like terms. So they're going to be able to combine. No. So since they're not going to be able to combine, you can make this one equation. You don't have to split it up. Okay? So how do I get rid of the 2 here? Subtract it. Subtract it from both sides. And make sure you write your answers in the correct version of a complex number. So the real part has to go first, which is -2, then plus or minus the I root 3. Okay, so you always have to write the real part first, then the imaginary part. That's your answer. Questions on how I did that?
Why do you have to add the 4 and then
Because if you add it to one side, you have to add it to the other side. And what this does, oh, you were gone yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is called completing the square. Previously, if something wasn't factorable, you had to use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is sometimes difficult for people to remember. So this is just another method that we solve quadratic equations. Okay, it's called completing the square. So you figure out, you take the middle number, which was the 4, divide it by 2 and square it. So 2 squared means you add 4 to both sides. If you factored this, it would be x plus 2 and another x plus 2. And remember, anytime you have a square, you can solve that by taking the square root of both sides. So this is basically finding what's going to give you what's called a perfect square binomial. You'll see in the next couple. And it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it, so you just have to memorize that formula. Middle number divided by 2 and square it. Middle number divided by 2 squared. And that is for sure a notes quiz thing. Okay, middle number divided by 2 and squared. Okay, let's try another one. Number 2. For number 2, 3x squared minus 36x plus 150 equals 0. 3x squared minus 36x plus 150 equals 0. First thing we want to look for here is a what? GCF. Okay, if you take out the GCF, what is the GCF here? A 3. Take out a 3, left behind would be x squared minus 12x plus 50 equals 0. The whole reason we take out that GCF is we want to get rid of it. Okay? Otherwise, I know some of you have had this class before, and I'm not sure if you remember that we used to have to multiply back through, and it made it difficult, okay? The way that we do this, I'm teaching it a different way this year, and we're just dividing it away, and it makes it a lot easier. I never quite realized that before. So, divide that away, leaves you with x squared minus 12x plus 50 equals 0. 0 divided by 3 is still 0, it's not undefined. Then try to factor if you can, okay? Even though the instructions tell you to solve by completing the square, if I just said solve, we would try to factor, okay? Can you multiply to 50 and add to negative 12? No, okay? So then if I want to solve by completing the square, and the reason we solve by completing the square is here, this would give you just really big numbers if you were going to use the quadratic formula. So that's why completing the square is just a better alternative a lot of times. So what would you do first? Move the 50. So we want to create that space to insert the c value. So it leaves you with x squared minus 12x. We still have that space equals negative 50. And again, I would actually put a space there, so hopefully it's like a visual reminder for you to remember, I have to add something. Formula to find the c value is take the middle number, divide it by 2 and square it. So negative 6 squared, add to both sides. By the way, is it ever possible that you're going to subtract from both sides? No, why is it not possible? You're always going to add, because no matter what you do, anything squared turns out positive. Okay? Negative times a negative will give you a positive. Positive times a positive will give you a positive. So it's never possible that you're going to be subtracting. Okay, so what would I add to both sides here? Plus 36. Okay, if you add 36, rewrite this. What is that written as? A binomial squared. x minus 6. And again, if you showed your work, then this number is already right there. Okay, you don't even have to do the factoring. It's already done for you. So x minus 6 quantity squared equals what? Negative 50, positive 36 gives you what? Negative 14. Then take the square root of both sides. Root both sides. Make sure you put in a plus or minus anytime you introduce a radical. So x minus 6 equals plus or minus what? I root 14, nothing. There's no pairs there. Do I need to make two equations, or can I just leave it as one? Leave it as one. Even when you leave it as one, you're still getting two answers. Okay, but you know that you don't have to split it up because there's nothing that's going to be like terms. So add 6 to both sides, and our final answer should be x equals 6 plus or minus I root 14. Questions on how I did that? Okay, I'm going to do two more for you. Maybe just one, we'll see. Okay, for number 3. For number 3, if I give you 5x squared plus 10x equals 20. 5x squared plus 10x equals 20. Only difference here is that the number is on, or the number by itself, the C value, right now is on the other side, okay? If I'm telling you to solve by completing the square, regardless of if you move the 20 to the left side or it stays on the right side, what's the first step you want to take? You would take out a GCF. So anytime we're asking you to solve and there is a leading coefficient, so a number in front, the first thing you want to do is factor out the GCF, or factor out the number, okay? Factor out that coefficient. We're not taking out a GCF because I don't want to take out an x. I just want to take out the number attached. So if you took out the number attached, we'd end up with x squared plus 2x. Now, since we're in this step already, I'm going to leave a space, okay? Because I still am going to find that C value. Equals, we still have a 20. Now, what do I do with that coefficient? Divide it away. Okay, so divide this away. You're going to divide by both sides. Then that leaves you with x squared plus 2x. We still have a space. And what will it be equal to? Equals 4. Okay, then you could solve. Since we know we're going to add something to the left side, you also know it's going to add to the right side. Find your number. So what would you add for your C value? Middle number divided by 2 and square it. So what am I adding to both sides? A 1. Okay, so add to both sides. How do I write that as the square of a binomial? What goes inside with the x being squared? X plus 1, right. You're still going to take the exact same thing out of those parentheses. So x plus 1 quantity squared equals what? 5. Then to undo a square, square root both sides. Make sure you put in plus or minus. X plus 1 will equal plus or minus. What's the square root of 5? Can you take out any pairs? No i's, nothing, just square root of 5. And for this one, do I need to split it into 2? Do you think I'm going to end up with any like terms here? No. So you can just subtract 1 from both sides. Make sure that you write your answers in standard form. So we always write the whole part first. So negative 1 plus or minus root 5. That's the answer that I'm looking for. Now, the reason I'm showing you one like this is you're going to see on your homework, there are problems that are on your test that look somewhat like this. Okay, when you look at, oh sorry, that's in a really crazy spot.
Bob Dylan.
Okay. When you look at this and it asks you which one solved correctly, okay, what they've done here is they actually took out the 5. It's not showing you that when you took out the 5, they divided it away. Okay, so they didn't really show that step. They just divided it away in their head, basically. Which one would be correct? Alex, Bob, Chuck, or Dylan? Bob. Okay. What I would encourage you to do is on these types of problems, don't look at the answers, okay? Simply do the problem and then check the answer to see which got the same answer as you. Otherwise, the tendency that people will make is they look at it and like, okay, yeah, that looks right, okay? Don't look for what they did wrong. Just check your answer versus their answer, okay? That's a better alternative to solving here, okay? So make sure you understand which would be the next step. Same thing goes for, there's one other that's coming. Okay, something like this. It says, what's the next step in completing the square? Which should be the correct next step? Technically, it's not the exact next step, but which would be a correct step? Anytime there's a number in front, you're basically going to do what? Divide it away. So if I divided away the 2, what would be my next step? A. Okay, make sure that if you're going to divide something away, you do it to both sides. Questions on how I did that? Hopefully not too bad. Okay, homework for this is going to be a worksheet. It's in your worksheet packet already. You're going to be working on worksheet 6. You are doing numbers. You're doing the whole worksheet, numbers 1 through 21. But I want you to skip numbers 12 through 15. Okay, they give you ugly fractions, and we don't need to deal with that. So worksheet 6, numbers 1 through 21, skip 12 through 15. You have a bunch of time to be working right now. Okay, so please, please, please use your time wisely.